You're listening to Big World Network.
Just Kill Me, Season 4, Episode 12, Surprise Guests. Written and read by Wendy Herman. I closed my eyes tightly for a few seconds, 10 to be precise, counting slowly and deliberately, as if that would ensure the outcome I desired. It worked. I opened my eyes and he was still there, sitting on my couch, and smiling at me like I was Aphrodite and he was under my spell. What a day we'd had. We'd gone to pick up the boys at Jabba's bookstore and had unexpectedly run into Talia and Lars, who claimed they'd been out to lunch and saw my van in the parking lot. I had disguised the Odyssey to look like anyone's but mine, so when I raised an eyebrow at Talia, she immediately reminded me that the dent on the back fender had been her doing, and it had caught her attention. I pretended to be convinced. Ty and I had agreed in the car that confronting Lars and Talia would be a mistake at this point. Trevor was still waiting for confirmation that Talia was working for Dunwaddle, and he assured us that he would have the answer in the next 24 hours. So, though I was sure it would drive me insane, we decided to wait. I just wanted to get my boys home. All 5 of them. My father was strangely quiet as I quickly introduced him to his grandsons in the bookstore parking lot. Not the atmosphere I had envisioned for this momentous occasion, but it would have to do. The boys didn't seem to mind, and were positively giddy, immediately vying for their grandfather's attention. Jerry looked a little overwhelmed, but shot me a smile as the boys pulled him into the van, all chattering at once. We'd said goodbye to Lars and Talia at Jabba's, after making casual dinner plans for the day after next, and spent the 15-minute drive listening to all 3 boys excitedly tell us about their days simultaneously. Once we were home, Ty had gone in first to make sure Trevor's henchman was gone. Not only had Cole been freed, but there was no evidence whatsoever that he'd been there. Once Ty was sure the house was secure, we all went in. Ty had then whipped up some chicken oven nachos, and we'd all devoured every bite in near silence. It was nice to have the usually boring logistics of daily life distract me from the big stuff for a while. Before we knew it, it was time to get the kids bathed and in bed. Ty and I had also discussed when and how we would talk to the boys about the drastic changes our lives had been and would soon be going through, and had agreed to take a night off from making life-changing decisions. I was so relieved we were on the same page, I'd almost cried. I just couldn't handle any more drama today. I tucked the boys into their beds, and I was glad none of them asked where their father was. I felt like Scarlett O'Hara. I just kept thinking to myself, tomorrow is another day. Back downstairs, I got my dad settled into the guest room, and he went right to bed. I was giving him the night off, too, but he was in for quite a Q&A tomorrow. I returned to the living room, and Ty was watching the evening news, but turned the TV off when he saw me, grinning awkwardly. I'd forgotten we had one more decision to make before the day was over. Where was Ty sleeping? I knew where I wanted him to sleep. I also knew I had 3 very impressionable young men upstairs who wouldn't understand and possibly would never forgive me for what they would see as a definite betrayal of the man they knew as their father. We had to be careful until we told them the truth, especially if Ty ended up in my bed tonight. I sat down on the couch and closed my eyes. When I opened them, trying to convince myself I wasn't dreaming, my smile was thwarted by his shiner. His eye looked better, but still a little puffy. Our perfect evening had softened my anger about young Ty's and Trevor's unrivaled stupidity. When I really thought about it, my wisdom level 20 years ago would have been equal to that of a jar of peanut butter. So who was I to judge them so harshly? I frowned, and he leaned forward and took my hand. I deserved it, he said quietly, seeming to know what I was thinking. No, that young guy in the video deserved it. I was an idiot. I leaned toward him. I love you. I don't deserve you. I leapt across the couch and landed in his arms, planting my lips on his. His shock passed quickly, and he began kissing me back. We somehow found our way to my bedroom after all, and quickly made sure we locked the door, allowing ourselves to forget about the goings-on of the day, and just exist for each other for a few hours. It was pure, unadulterated bliss. The sun shone bright through the bedroom window the next morning, piercing through my eyelids and forcing me to get up. I reluctantly sat up and rubbed my legs to get the blood flowing. A sound from the bed startled me, and I stood and turned, ready to take down the intruder when I remembered I'd invited him in. I relaxed and exhaled, smiling at a still sleeping Ty. I could get used to this. Suddenly there was a knock at the bedroom door. Then a small voice said, "Mommy?" It was Rowan. "Yes, honey." Ty began to stir. "Mommy, I can't reach the cereal." "I'll be right there, sweetie." I heard little footsteps pattering down the stairs. My morning was so normal. I'd almost forgotten that my life was damn near unrecognizable from 6 months ago. The suburban housewife was long gone, and I was okay with that. What concerned me was how everything that had happened was going to affect my children. I knew I was getting way too comfortable in my warm, cozy blanket of denial as I poured Rowan a bowl of alphabets, but I just wanted to stay wrapped up in the happy little bubble Ty and I had made. The thought of talking to the boys about everything made me sick to my stomach, so I pushed it down, way down, and I poured the milk. As if on cue, there was a knock on the back door. I was surprised to see a fully dressed Ty smiling at me from the small porch. Blaze let him in, and I nearly let the bowl overflow as I stared at him. He walked over to me, and I whispered in his direction. "How the hell did you—" "Climb down from the bedroom window," he whispered back. My eyes widened, and a grin spread across my face that I couldn't have stopped if I'd wanted to. The amazing Ty still had a few magic tricks up his sleeve, it would seem, and I was so glad he was all mine. "We don't have a lot of time," he said then, mysteriously. "What are you talking about?" "Trevor's car just pulled up." Crap. I was glad I'd thrown on my running clothes before I'd come downstairs. Trevor was no longer entitled to see me in my nightie. I took a few deep breaths and put the cereal box away, just as another knock sounded at the back door. Ty and I were both in for a surprise, however, when we turned and saw an unexpected face, actually faces, through the small window. It wasn't Trevor at all. It was Leon and Ainsley. Although I'd drilled it into their skulls to never open the door for a stranger, Blaze flung the door open before Ty or I could stop him. I'd have to discuss that with my middle child later. The two hesitated crossing the threshold into my kitchen until I nodded for them to come in. I couldn't speak. I had no idea what to say. Ty walked over and closed the door behind them. Leon was smiling at me, and Ainsley was looking at Rowan, who was sitting at the breakfast counter scarfing his cereal, as though he was a rare and beautiful bird. I wondered if she'd ever been so close to a small child before. "What can we do for you two?" Ty asked, appearing back at my side. "We have some information for you. Trevor sent us," Leon said. I immediately put Levi in charge of the other two, and the 4 adults went into the dining room. Ty sat next to me, and Leon pulled the chair on the other side of me out for Ainsley to sit. Then he sat next to her. Leon cleared his throat. "Trevor didn't want to come himself for obvious reasons," he began. "Why couldn't he just call me?" I asked. "He's been trying all morning. Both of you kept getting voicemail." Ty and I looked at each other as we remembered the events of the previous night. My phone was dead, and I'd never thought to plug it in. It was currently sitting on my bedside table upstairs, completely useless. I squinted at Ty, who responded. "I think I left my phone in the van last night." I turned back to Leon and shrugged. He chuckled before continuing. "Anyway, he sent us to tell you that Lars and Talia are gone." I couldn't breathe. "Gone?" Ty asked for both of us. "Yeah, we lost track of them this morning. We think they skipped town." "But we're supposed to have dinner tomorrow night," I blurted out, then blushed with embarrassment. All right, so the meticulous homemaker in me wasn't completely dead, and apparently I was still about as smart as a tub of Jif. I decided to let Ty handle the rest of the conversation. "What do you mean you lost track of them?" Ty asked, sensing that I needed him to take the lead. "Well, the bugs we placed in Talia's house all suddenly malfunctioned at about 7 a.m. Same with Lars's apartment." "So they're just gone," Ty stated with disbelief. "Seems that way, but there's more we need to tell you." Lars gestured to Ainsley, and she looked up at us nervously. Her first attempt at making a sound was a failure, so she closed her mouth and swallowed hard before trying again. "Your implants." "I can't," she started, but a voice from the doorway cut her off. "You can't remove them," Jerry announced, and I suddenly remembered he'd said something about that right before he shot Trevor. He looked well rested and had showered and dressed in jeans and a long-sleeved golf shirt. We were all quiet as he entered the room, but he didn't sit. He hovered at the foot of the table. "Tell them the truth, Ainsley. Tell them what you told me yesterday." Ainsley swallowed again and managed to squeak out, "You didn't let me finish yesterday. I was trying to tell you I couldn't remove the implants because—" "You can't remove our implants?" Ty interrupted. My heart sank and I took a deep breath and closed my eyes. For a split second I thought to myself, "Wake up, Freya. You're dreaming." Ty opened his mouth to say more, but I put my hand on his arm. "Let her finish, Ty." He glanced at me and was silent, nodding at Ainsley to continue. Ainsley looked up at Leon, who urged her on with his own head nod, and then turned back to me and Ty. "I can't remove your implants because there isn't anything to remove."
You're listening to Big World Network.